All right, let's dive into Canadian political party platforms.
They're pretty impactful, eh?
Oh, yeah, they shape the whole country, basically.
Definitely.
Well, you gave us a big stack of research,
Uh-huh.
including a thesis, a whole academic thesis.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pull out the good stuff,
Yeah,
the interesting stuff.
like a deep dive.
Exactly, a deep dive. That's what we're calling it.
Perfect.
So,
It's interesting how much goes on behind the scenes with this stuff. It's
Yeah.
like a,
secret code
secret code.
to know what they're really going to do if they win.
Exactly.
Okay, so,
You ready to decode?
yeah, let's decode this thing.
Okay.
We got the main parties,
The big three.
the big three: Liberals, Conservatives, NDP.
Oh.
This research suggests that the NDP's economic strategies
Interesting.
might be hitting a nerve with more Canadians than we think.
Yeah.
They're talking about stuff like, living wage,
Uh-huh.
affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of people think those old ideas just aren't working.
Like trickle down.
Yeah, like trickle-down economics.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem to be working for everyone,
especially with the rising cost of living these days.
Especially, yeah,
Yeah,
younger voters, they're looking for solutions.
right, yeah.
And it seems like maybe the NDP is tapping into that.
Okay, so they're feeling the squeeze, and the NDP is offering solutions.
It seems so, yeah.
But those solutions mean,
Bigger government?
bigger government,
Yeah.
more programs.
Right.
That's kind of the opposite of the Conservatives.
Oh, yeah, they're all about
Somehow.
small government, fiscal restraint,
Yeah.
individual responsibility.
Oh.
Those are their big things.
Okay, so lower taxes, less spending
Mhm.
leads to prosperity.
That's the idea, yeah.
Okay, but what about
The other stuff.
the other stuff, the big stuff?
Yeah, like what?
Like healthcare, education.
Oh, right.
Those are big.
Those are crucial. Absolutely.
I'm guessing the NDP and the Conservatives have different ideas about how those should be run.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what are we looking at?
Well, the conservatives, they often lean towards, a little more private sector involvement.
Okay, so more private healthcare.
Yeah, they argue that it increases efficiency, gives people more choice.
Okay, I see. So choice is a big thing for them.
Choice and efficiency, yeah.
Okay. And the NDP.
Oh, the NDP. They're all about a fully public system.
Okay, fully public.
They want to expand services, things like pharmacare,
Yeah.
dental care.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but
Yeah.
how are they going to pay for all that?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is. It is. I mean,
Their platform calls for higher taxes on corporations
okay,
and high-income earners,
to fund it all.
to pay for these social programs.
Okay, so bigger government, higher taxes.
Right.
That's the NDP approach.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Okay, so healthcare is a big one. And I'm guessing education is another one where they have very different ideas.
Oh, yeah, huge differences. What's going on there?
Conservatives, they are all about parental choice.
Okay.
They often support things like private schools or charter schools.
Okay, so more options for parents.
Exactly.
All right. And the NDP.
NDP, strong public education system for everyone.
Okay, so they're sticking with the public system,
Yeah, they want it well-funded, accessible to all.
regardless of background.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems like the conservatives are all about individual choice, responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
and the NDP is more about collective action, social safety nets.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it.
Would you say that's fair?
I think that's fair, yeah.
Okay, and then you have the liberals,
Ah, the liberals.
stuck in the middle,
Right in the middle.
always trying to find that middle ground,
The middle way.
the middle way.
The pragmatic approach.
Right, yeah.
They present themselves as the sensible choice. Okay, balancing social programs with fiscal responsibility.
That's the idea.
But isn't that,
Tricky.
it's tricky.
Very tricky.
Because you're trying to please everyone and you end up pleasing no one.
Could be.
Right.
It's a tough balancing act, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they get criticized for it,
Yeah.
for not taking a firm stand.
Right. For being too cautious.
Too cautious, yeah.
Yeah.
But they argue that that's what you got to do to govern Canada.
Right. Because
So many different
a
perspectives.
diverse country. Yeah.
You got to find a way to make it work for everyone.
Okay. So lots of different perspectives.
For sure.
And that brings us to, social justice issues.
Yeah, those are big these days.
Huge, like climate change,
Mm-hmm.
indigenous rights,
Right.
racial equity.
Absolutely.
mean,
Those are really top of mind for a lot of voters.
How do these parties approach that stuff?
Well, the Liberals, they often position themselves as the leaders on climate action.
Okay, so they want to be seen as the climate champions.
Yeah, but they get criticized too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not moving fast enough,
right,
making compromises
right.
that maybe undermine their goals.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's a tough issue.
And the conservatives, their base,
Yeah, their base is not quite as,
Not as enthusiastic.
not as enthusiastic about climate action.
Especially if it means,
Cost for businesses,
cost for businesses, yeah.
regulations.
Regulations, yeah.
They're a little more hesitant about that.
Okay.
You talk about balancing environmental protection with economic growth.
Right, yeah.
That's their approach.
Okay, so slower, more measured approach?
You could say that, yeah.
Okay, and the NDP, I'm guessing they're pushing for
Oh, they want radical action.
radical action.
Yeah, rapid transition to a green economy.
Okay.
Massive investments.
Yeah.
Renewable energy.
Okay.
Sustainable infrastructure.
Okay.
Sustainable infrastructure.
Big changes.
Big changes, yeah.
But wouldn't that
Be disruptive.
be disruptive
Of course.
to the economy?
Yeah, but they argue that in the long run, it'll create more jobs.
Okay, so short-term pain for long-term gain.
That's the argument.
Okay.
It's that classic debate,
Yeah.
economic growth versus environmental protection.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one for sure.
Okay, so we've got these three parties, very different visions for Canada.
Yeah, for sure.
But how does all this translate into
Real world
the
policy.
real world policies? Yeah,
That's the next question.
because it's not just like they snap their fingers and it all happens, right?
No, not at all.
There's a whole process.
A whole process.
Yeah.
Lots of factors at play.
Okay, so let's peel back the curtain a little bit
All right, let's do it.
and take a look at what happens after the election.
Okay.
What are some of the key things that determine whether a party can actually deliver on its promises?
Well, one of the biggest things is the legislative process itself.
Okay, so the way laws are made in Canada.
Exactly. It's complex.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Okay, so it's not just the winning party saying, okay, we're doing this and it happens.
No.
There are checks and balances.
Lots of them.
Okay, so that's good.
It's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes sure that things are done carefully,
Right, yeah,
but it can be frustrating for a government that wants to move quickly,
I bet.
you know?
Yeah, so even with a majority.
Even with majority, they can't just...
ram things through.
No, not at all.
Okay,
And then there's the Senate.
right, the Senate.
They can review legislation,
Okay,
amend it, even reject it.
so they can really put the brakes on.
They can, yeah.
Interesting.
They're a powerful force.
Okay, so what else can throw a wrench into the plans?
Well, funding is always a big one,
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to promise things, but
but to pay for them,
to pay for them, yeah.
it's a whole other story.
Right.
Governments have to figure out how to make it work.
So budget constraints.
Big time.
Yeah.
They can really limit what a government can do.
So it's all about setting realistic expectations, I guess.
It really is.
Yeah, those campaign promises
Yeah,
don't always survive the reality of governing.
sadly, no.
Okay, so we've talked about the legislative process, the Senate, the money. What about the people?
The people.
Can everyday Canadians actually influence how these platforms get implemented?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Because while the government has the power,
Yeah.
we're also accountable to the people.
So it's not just a one-way street.
No, it's a dialogue.
It's a back and forth.
Exactly.
Okay.
Citizens can make their voices heard. So many ways. Writing to their MP,
Oh, okay.
signing petitions,
Mhm.
organizing protests,
Okay.
contacting the media,
Right.
using social media.
Yeah, social media is huge these days.
It's a powerful tool.
Okay, so it's about being an active citizen,
Absolutely.
not just sitting back and...
Letting things happen.
Yeah.
You got to get involved. It's not always
Uh-huh.
easy, but
But it can be rewarding.
it can be, yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here in this first part.
A lot of ground.
We've looked at the main parties,
Yeah.
their positions.
Mhm.
We've talked about the platform creation process.
Behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, the challenges of actually making those promises a reality.
Right, turning those ideas into action.
But we're just getting started.
This is just the beginning.
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to go even deeper.
Deeper.
We'll be exploring the role of the media,
Oh, yeah, the media.
the influence of special interest groups,
Those are powerful players.
and all the behind-the-scenes strategies that parties use to win over voters.
The tricks of the trade.
Yeah, the tricks of the trade, so buckle up.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back. All right, so how about we dig into how these platforms actually get made?
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
Because, it's not all like backroom deals and shady strategists.
Really? I
Uh-huh.
always kind of pictured it like that. I mean, there's definitely strategy.
Yeah.
but it's gotten a lot more sophisticated.
Okay.
They use a ton of data now
Oh, wow.
and
I
research.
should figure out what Canadians want.
Exactly.
Just
Just
like
like
a marketing campaign.
yeah, but instead of a product,
Right.
they're selling a vision for the country.
Makes sense.
And to do that, they need to know their audience.
Okay, so that's where the polling comes in.
Polling, focus groups,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Trying to figure out what people care about.
Exactly. What are those hot button issues?
Yeah.
What resonates?
That they can't just be chasing polls. Right.
Right. They have to balance that
Well,
with their core values.
Principles.
Yeah. And that's where it gets tricky.
How so?
Well, you've got different groups within each party.
Okay, different factions.
Yeah, different priorities.
And they all want their ideas in the platform.
Exactly. And that can lead to some pretty intense debates.
I bet.
Yeah, this thesis actually talks about
Yeah?
the role of think tanks in all this.
Think tanks.
Yeah, those independent research groups,
Ah.
they often have a certain,
Agenda.
a certain slant, you could say,
Okay.
and they can be very influential.
So they're kind of like the idea factories.
In a way, yeah.
Supplying the parties with,
Ammo.
ammo for their platforms.
Exactly.
And sometimes those ideas clash with,
The party leadership,
who have to be more
pragmatic.
right?
They have to think about what's actually electable.
Right. What's going to win votes?
Exactly.
It's a tough balance.
It is, for sure.
So you've got this kind of tug of war between idealism and pragmatism.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay, and then on top of that, you've got global trends.
Oh, yeah, those are huge.
Be sure.
Well, parties are always looking at what other countries are doing.
Okay, so borrowing ideas.
Borrowing, adapting.
Okay, so it's like a global best practices exchange.
You could say that.
Okay, so we've got data, internal party dynamics, global trends.
That's a lot.
It's a lot to juggle.
It is.
But eventually they have to actually write the thing.
Right, they have to turn all that into a document.
Yeah, a platform.
And that's where the professional communicators come in.
Okay, so people who know how to...
Make it sound good.
Yeah, make it sound good.
Make it clear, concise.
Right, so it's not just about substance, it's about style, too.
Absolutely.
They have to tell a story that connects with voters.
Exactly, a narrative.
And that's where the branding comes in.
Branding, messaging.
Yeah.
It's all part of it.
I was looking at this research and it says that 58% of Canadian voters felt a personal connection to the party they supported because of branding.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. What kind of branding are we talking about here?
Well, it's a bit of everything,
Okay, like what?
The visuals, the logos, the colors.
Right.
But it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
It's about projecting a certain image.
Okay, a vibe.
A vibe, yeah.
Certain values.
The leadership style.
That people connect with.
Exactly.
So it's like creating a personality for the party.
Yeah, a personality that people are drawn to.
Okay, and that's especially important with social media these days.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
You're competing with so much noise.
You got to cut through the clutter.
And make a lasting impression.
Exactly.
Okay, so even with the best branding in the world...
You still need to communicate it.
Right, and that's where the media comes in.
The media is crucial.
Yeah.
They shape how the public sees the parties.
Okay, so they report on the campaigns.
They analyze the policies.
They host debates.
Interviews.
All that stuff.
All of it.
But with social media, I mean...
Oh, yeah. The media landscape has changed a lot.
It has, right.
It has, yeah.
It's not just newspapers and TV anymore.
Oh, you've got Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
Yeah, it's a whole new ballgame.
It is.
I mean, I get most of my news from social media these days.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
A lot of people do, especially younger voters.
Really?
Yeah, something like 78% of Canadians aged 18 to 34.
Wow, that's a lot.
Get their political news from social media.
Okay, so parties have to be really smart about how they use social media.
They do. It's not just about posting a few updates.
Right.
It's about creating engaging content, using targeted advertising,
Okay.
mobilizing their online communities,
Right.
responding to what people are saying.
That's a whole different skill set.
It is. It's like a whole new world.
Okay, so we've talked about how parties craft their platforms, how they use data, branding, all that stuff. But it's not just a one-way street, right?
No, not at all.
Voters can push back,
Absolutely.
demand more.
That's the power of civil society.
Okay, so we're talking about...
Advocacy groups, community organizations, grassroots movements.
So it's not just about voting every few years.
No, it's about being active.
Participating.
Yeah, making your voice heard.
And social media can really amplify those voices.
Oh, yeah, big time.
We've seen so many examples of that.
Climate change, social justice, economic
I
inequality.
feel like the people are taking back their power.
In a way, they are.
It's inspiring.
It is.
It shows that democracy is more than just electing representatives.
Exactly. It's about holding them accountable.
Making sure they reflect the needs of the people.
That's what it's all about.
Okay. This is all so fascinating.
It is, right.
We've covered so much.
We've gone deep.
We have.
Deep into the heart of Canadian politics.
But before we wrap up this part,
Yeah.
I'm curious about something.
What's that?
We've talked a lot about the parties, the platforms. What about the leaders themselves?
Ah, the leader.
How much influence do they actually have?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it depends.
Okay. On what?
Well, on a few things.
Okay, like what?
Their personality,
Okay.
their leadership style, their relationship with the party,
Okay.
and the overall political climate.
So a charismatic leader might have more sway
Definitely, yeah.
than someone who's seen as,
Weak.
weak, indecisive.
Right, a strong leader can really shape the platform. They can champion certain issues,
Right.
set the tone for the campaign,
Okay.
even redefine the party's image.
Wow, that's a lot of power.
It is.
But what about leaders who are more beholden to,
A party establishment.
yeah, the people behind the scenes?
Right. They might have less freedom.
Just could do their own thing.
Exactly. They might have to make compromises
Okay.
to keep those powerful figures happy.
So it's a delicate balancing act,
It is.
trying to stay true to your own vision,
Yeah.
but also navigating those internal party dynamics.
Right.
And then you have the political climate.
Right. That plays a role too.
In times of crisis, people want strong leadership.
Absolutely.
So a leader who can offer solutions
yeah.
might have more leeway.
To shape the platform.
Okay, so it's like a perfect storm of factors.
It really is.
That determines how much influence a leader has.
But ultimately, it's their name on the ballot.
Right, they have to own it.
They're accountable.
If the platform fails.
They take the...
Okay, so we've got powerful leaders, complex platform creation processes.
Lots of moving parts.
It's a lot to take in,
It is.
but it's starting to make sense now.
Good.
I'm starting to see how it all works.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
To demystify it all.
And to make it,
Engaging.
engaging. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because it is interesting.
It is. Canadian politics is fascinating.
It is. It's just sometimes it feels a bit
Inaccessible.
inaccessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you need a PhD to understand it.
Right. But it doesn't have to be that way.
No. And that's what I like about this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're breaking it down.
Making it accessible.
Yeah. For everyone.
That's the goal.
All right. So we've covered a lot in this part,
A lot.
but there's still more to come.
Oh, yeah. We're just getting started.
In the final part of our deep dive,
The grand finale.
we're going to explore what happens after the election,
The aftermath.
how those platforms actually get turned into policies,
From promises to action.
what challenges governments face,
The obstacles.
and what role citizens can play in holding their elected officials accountable.
The power of the people.
It's going to be fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back and ready to tackle the last part of our deep dive into Canadian political party platforms.
The final frontier.
Exactly. And this is where things get really real.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, because making promises is one thing, but actually delivering on them.
That's a whole other story.
It is. So what are some of the biggest roadblocks parties face when they actually try to implement their platform?
Well, one of the most common ones is minority governments.
Right, because in Canada, it's pretty rare for one party to win a majority of seats.
It is, yeah.
So they often have to form these minority governments
Which means they need to work with other parties.
to get things done.
Exactly. They need to build coalitions.
Compromise.
Yeah, make deals.
And that can mean watering down some of those big promises.
Or even scrapping them all together.
Look, it's the art of the possible in politics, right?
Right. It is. You got to be flexible.
Adaptable.
Yeah, you can't always get everything you want.
And then there's the money issue.
Oh, yeah. Funding is always a constraint.
Because even if you have the best intentions...
You still need the resources to make it happen.
Exactly. So budget limitations can really force governments to make tough choices.
They do, prioritize certain things over others.
It's back to that reality check again.
Right, those campaign promises.
Don't always survive contact with reality.
Sadly, no.
And then sometimes you get those curveballs.
Those unforeseen events.
Like what?
Oh, a pandemic.
Right.
A natural disaster.
Serious action.
Things that nobody could have predicted.
That completely throw things off course.
It's like trying to steer a ship in a hurricane.
It must feel like that sometimes for those in charge.
It does. It's chaotic.
So even without those major shocks.
There are other things that can get in the way.
Like what?
Well, the bureaucracy.
Ah, the bureaucracy.
They're the ones who actually implement the policies.
Right, they translate those political ideas into action.
Exactly. And if they're not efficient,
Or if they're resistant to change.
it can really slow things down.
So a well-functioning bureaucracy is essential.
Absolutely. It's the engine of government.
And I'm guessing public opinion matters too.
Oh, for sure. You can't ignore the people.
Because if there's a lot of pushback against a certain policy,
The government might have to rethink things.
change course.
Yeah, it's all about finding that balance.
Between the political ideals and the practical realities.
Exactly.
Okay, so we talked about the challenges,
The obstacles.
but let's flip the script for a second.
Okay.
Are there any examples of parties that have actually succeeded in doing what they said they would do?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, give me some good news.
All right, well, the liberals, for example.
Yeah.
They've made some progress on climate change.
Okay, they made some big promises.
They did.
And they haven't done everything,
Not yet.
but they have made some strides.
In reducing emissions, investing in renewables,
So they're walking the walk.
to some extent, yeah.
Okay, that's one for the liberals. Any success stories from the other parties?
Well, when the conservatives were last in power,
Yeah.
they were pretty effective at implementing their tax cuts.
Okay, that was their big thing.
It was, and they delivered on it.
So lower taxes for individuals and corporations.
Exactly.
And they argue that this led to economic growth.
They do.
Okay, 2 down. What about the NDP?
Well, they haven't formed government federally,
Right.
but they've been very influential in pushing other parties.
To adopt more progressive policies.
Exactly.
So even though they haven't been in power...
They've still shaped the political landscape.
Okay, so they're kind of like the conscience of the nation,
You could say that.
pushing for those social justice goals.
Environmental protection, workers' rights.
And it's worked in some cases.
It has. Their persistence has paid off.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
Parties can achieve things.
They can. It just takes time.
Effort.
And a bit of luck.
Okay, well, this has been an incredible journey.
It has.
We've gone from casual observer...
To inform citizens.
I feel like I understand Canadian politics so much better now.
That's what we were hoping for.
You've demystified it all.
We tried our best.
And you've made it engaging and interesting.
Well, it is a fascinating subject.
It is, once you get past all the jargon and the complexity.
Right.
And that's what I appreciate about this deep dive.
We wanted to make it accessible to everyone
To empower people with knowledge.
so they can participate in our democracy.
Because ultimately, the future of Canada is in our hands.
It is. We all have a role to play.
Well said. All right, so on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode.
Sounds good.
But before we go, I want to thank you again for taking us on this incredible journey.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Canadian political party platforms. We hope you've learned something new and that you'll stay engaged and informed because, as we've seen, your voice matters, your participation matters, and together we can shape the future of Canada. So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged.